We are tracking new revelations as well about the Idaho murder suspect, Bryan Kohberger, not expected back in court again until late June. Right now, he's being held without bail. We have now learned that Kohberger had posted in an online forum discussing his struggles with mental health and in messages he sent to friends obtained by the New York Times. As a teenager, he allegedly described suicidal thoughts, saying he felt, quote, no emotion and little remorse. I want to bring in Tracy Walder, former CIA officer and FBI special agent. Tracy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Natasha.
We are seeing reports of these old posts where he is having suicidal thoughts. He's observing his life as if he's in a video game, that he felt like, quote, an organic sack of meat with no self-worth. He could, quote, do whatever he wanted with little remorse. In these recent revelations, what is standing out to you?
Well, I think really what's standing out is this is clearly someone who was struggling, with their mental health. And these kind of online musings, I have to wonder if they were almost sort of a cry for help. I'm not sure that he had conversations with his family. However, him kind of putting it out there in the internet ether is clearly a cry for help. But I think we have to be careful. Just because someone is struggling, with mental health issues, might be suicidal, suffering from visual snow, doesn't necessarily, make them a murderer. So I think the prosecution is going to have to be a little careful with how they use this information.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's also information about some past drug use. Is that right?
From what I'm seeing, yes, a little bit of past drug use. And there's questions as to whether or not that drug use, did it lead to the visual snow, or was he doing these drugs to kind of alleviate the visual snow? So it's hard to know what role sort of drugs played into his system, or if he was even under the influence when he committed these murders.
And to be clear, Kohberger did not use his actual name in this chat forum. His birthday matches, as does the username matching an old email of his. But in this chat forum, he also may be talking about having visual snow syndrome, which you're alluding to. Can you tell us more about this, and is it potentially significant to this case at all?
Yeah, so I found that to be very interesting. Visual snow is exceedingly rare. It's basically, constantly seeing the world in fuzz, really, or haze, constantly seeing bright lights flashing. All of those things can lead to migraines. All of those things can lead to lack of sleep. And all of those things can sometimes be a precursor to mental illness. So it's hard to know if he was actually diagnosed with that, or if that was something that he was sort of mulling whether or not he was dealing with the repercussions of. Also, it's been linked to drug use as well.
And we know some of our viewers immediately, when they were hearing about the potential visual snow component, were thinking about the affidavit, and specifically that moment where the surviving roommate talks about seeing him in that hallway, and obviously that roommate was left alive. In your investigator's mind, immediately does it go to that as well? Potentially, did visual snow play into that moment in interaction where maybe he did not even see that surviving roommate?
So weirdly, visual snow isn't what came to my mind. Really, what came to my mind when I thought about the fact that he perhaps didn't see the roommate was, one, just the layout of the house. He probably didn't see her. But I think also, too, he had released a lot of adrenaline in committing these murders. And part of me wonders if he was just so blinded like that, that he was almost in this dream or daze-like state, and that's what caused him to not see her. Yes, it certainly could have been the visual snow in terms of him not seeing straight, but that just wasn't where my mind first went.
I appreciate that, Tracy. Thank you. So with these sort of revelations, past potential online postings online, can the prosecution use any of this against Kohberger going forward as they build their case?
That's an excellent question. I doubt it, to be completely honest with you, because I think either the defense is going to use this to kind of, set up some kind of an insanity plea, which I don't think is going to happen, just because he has said that was very cognizant of what he was being charged with. I think the prosecution is going to have to be very careful in terms of how they use this, because we don't want to, further stigmatize mental health. And really, it's just circumstantial that he may have been suffering from some of these things. It didn't necessarily lead to him committing these murders.
Really appreciate that, and always appreciate your time. Tracy Walder, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.